our 5 Ps.
Okay.
Pitch, performance, perfection. Okay. First, this course is traction. Now, I'm opening fast, man. Even though I'm just touching the screen, I'm all stood up. And you see me.
Right, so let's get into it. Let me share my screen and then we can see if we can get into this. Is everybody okay to see my screen? Yep.
Yep.
Cool.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is a new way for everyone. I've been using it for a little while, so I'm okay with it. Let's see how we get on with the number that we've got in here, and we'll go with it. So we're going to have, so how we're going to work this is we've got a quick introduction from me, and then what we're going to try and do is we're going to break into small groups, into breakout rooms, and what I'd like you to do is just spend a little time interviewing one another. And we're going to do this randomly, so the computer's going to pick the groups of 3 that you'll go into, and you'll just go into a room for about 20 minutes, and each of you will interview each other for about 7 minutes each. Okay? And I'll time it, so the room, it'll bring you back out the room, it'll give you a minute's notice to come back out and come back into the main group, and we can have a quick discussion on how you felt about that. Then we're going to have a break. So within online, a lot to do with online is that we need to have breaks fairly regularly. It just helps our brain cope with all the data that we're getting online compared to being face-to-face. So there will be a couple of breaks that we'll put in for the morning session. Anybody has any questions, just let me know. You can either send me a chat message or you can talk to me online about it. And then we'll go into elevator pitching. So some of you have already done this before if you were on the class in October. It's similar, so it'll give you a chance to practice it. I'll be interested to see the ones that were on it, how their elevator pitches have, if they've been practicing them. And then for others, it'll give you an idea of what an elevator pitch is and what, more importantly, what it isn't. Okay, and then we'll do a quick video on the psychology of selling. So the whole point of this morning is to give you an idea of what selling isn't and what selling is. And this will help the marketing people. Marketing, I need a lot. So sales and marketing need to go together. They are hand in glove together. They do not work separately. They work together in order to make it an effective offer for customers. Let me just admit them. So we've got some more coming into the call. Okay. Cool. So we'll talk about that. We'll have another break, and then we'll do a bit around emotional intelligence, which is understanding yourself, understanding your customer, and then what we'll bring everything together under the power of insights, and then do a quick summary and close and be off by 1 o'clock. Okay. So that's the plan. Okay. So what I'm looking to do is I'll give you a quick introduction to me first of all. Come on. Morning to those that have just come on. I'm just quickly running through the program so you haven't missed anything. So to give you an idea who I am, my name's Peter Waggett. I'm Managing Director of a company called Vertical Motives, which is my company. I set it up in 2015. I have 25 plus years experience working in sales and management, particularly in B2B, on a global basis. And since 2015, I work with companies to help them understand their sales process. And I also work with companies to, individuals to help them understand if they have a neurodiversity. And I'll get into a bit about that later on, what that means. So I'm a coach. I've been at this university since 2016 as an executive fellow. I work in the business school, and I'm there to help the students understand how to communicate, because you guys communicate differently to us old bods. So this is not new to you. You're good at this, whereas us oldies have been on a steep learning curve this last 7 or 8 weeks. So mobile phones and laptops, and we've got so many different things we're using now compared to before. So just to understand a bit about how we communicate with one another, and how best to do that. So that's how I work with the students at the university. And if anybody has any questions or I'm talking too fast, it's quite all right to ask me to slow down. I won't take it personally, okay? So I recognise there's a lot of us on here who potentially English isn't our first language, and I recognise that. So if you feel I'm going too fast, please just let me know, okay? So we'll move on first. What I'd like to do first of all is we're going to set this up as an activity. And what we're going to try and get you to do is we're going to break you into groups of 3. And in the groups of 3, we are going to interview one another. And all I'm looking for you to do is to understand a bit about the person you're talking to and to find out a bit about them. What that information is or what it looks like, that's for you to decide. And we're going to give you, if there's 3 of you in the room, we're going to give you 7 minutes each. Okay, so if there's somebody not being interviewed, if they could be the timekeeper and time the 7 minutes, and what I'll do is I'll give you 21 minutes, 22 minutes in the room to allow you to do the quick changeovers. And then what we will do is we'll come back in to the main area where everybody's together, and we'll have a group discussion on how you felt that went. And if anybody is open to it, if they wanted to talk about the person they interviewed, it can be 30 seconds, it can be a minute. It's up to you if you would like to talk about what you found out about the person. Is everybody okay with that? Yeah, cool. Okay, so I'm going to do this now. I'm going to set out into breakout rooms. So we've got 50. I need to get my math here. So we will go with, let's go with 17 breakout rooms. Yeah. Okay, so it's going to assign you. So the breakout rooms will close after 22 minutes. Okay, and so all I'm looking for you to do is, once you get into your breakout rooms, is just decide who's going to interview first and who's going to be the interviewee, and then the third person will be the timekeeper. Okay, and just decide that and start having a chat. That's all it is. You've got a coffee in front of you or a glass of water, so it's just about having a chat. That's all this is about. There's no assessment. It's just to kind of get you talking to one another, and it will be random. Okay, and then what I'll do is I'll dip in and out, so I can come in and dip in and out and listen to how you're getting on. All right, so let's try that now. I'll open the rooms now and we'll put you all into them, and then we'll bring you back in 22 minutes. Okay. Hey Lucy, no, you can do with me, and you can dip in and out. Let me make you a co-host, and you can dip in and out and listen to them.
Wow. Okay. And do you plan to go back soon to Beijing?
Yeah.
Okay. Like just when you finish your dissertation or before?
Sorry, dissertation.
Like, yeah, you know that we have to do a project for
Yeah.
dissertation.
Yeah, dissertation. Yeah.
Do you want to go back before or after?
Oh, hello.
How are you guys doing?
Have,
Nobody speaking to you.
Hello, Professor.
Hello.
Can I know what the interview is about? About the work or study or self-experience?
Whatever you want to talk about, you can just talk away. So whatever questions you want to ask them, or anything.
Okay.
About their life, about what they're doing here, about whatever. Yep, it's your call to make.
Okay.
Is that okay?
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So just have a quick chat about what you've talked. You know, what's your life story? What's the story so far? Why are you in Aberdeen? You know, studying. What is it you want to do? What have you done in the past? Lots of things. Where are you from?
Okay.
Yeah, is that okay?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay. Morning. How are
Hello,
you?
hi.
Hi.
Hi there. Sorry, I was at the bathroom.
No, that's quite all right, Lynn. Not a problem. Is Kwangzu? Are you there?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
here.
Are you guys? So all we're looking to do is to just have a conversation, nothing more. There's no agenda to this. So just ask some questions of each other and find out a bit about one another and see what happens.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
Is that okay?
yeah, no, that's great.
So there's no agenda. Just find out a bit of information about one another and have a chat.
Okay, great.
Is that okay? Cool.
Yeah, that's great.
I'll
Thank
leave
you.
the room and let you get on to it. Good morning.
Yeah, good morning.
Oh, hi, Victor.
Hi,
How are you?
I'm fine.
Have your other breakout room people not wanting to have a chat with you?
Yes, I don't know. One said the network is not stable, so that's what one said. The other person, all their mics are mute, so there is nobody to chat with.
Oh. Would you like me to put you in another group and see if we can get you chatting?
All right.
Right, leave that with me. Give me 2 seconds. I'll put you in a different room. Morning.
Hello.
Hello.
How is everyone?
We just finished our interview. A short interview.
You're chatting with one another?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
chatted with Jason just now.
Okay. So you've been finding out about each other?
I find some information about Jason, but he didn't, because he is the interviewee. I asked questions.
Cool. How did you feel, Jason? Okay?
Yes, uh, he's very good and very nice. He answered my question very patient.
Okay. Okay. And have you been interviewed now as well?
No, I just being an interviewer.
Okay. So it would be good if you could switch roles and you could be interviewed and you could get some questions for you to answer. Would that be okay?
Yes, it's okay.
Okay, I'll let you guys do that. So if you just switch roles, then and you can answer some questions, that would be great. You've got about 6 minutes left, so you're okay.
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 Cool. Just let everybody come back in. It won't be long now. Cool. So everybody should start coming back in. Oh, we're getting more people's faces. That's lovely to see. Very nice. No, and put Lillian, put it back up. Why am I the only one? Me and Akshay. That's it. If I've got to have a bad hair day, everybody else has to too. Okay, everybody starting to come back in. Cool. Perfect. We'll just give them a second. Okay, we have everybody in. I'll just quickly, just because we've got a bit of background noise there. So what I'm looking for is, what I'm going to ask is just to have a think about it for a minute, and just, first of all, what I'd like to find out is how you felt asking some questions. How was it to people that you potentially didn't know? So how did you feel asking some questions? So I'm going to unmute everybody. I hope everybody can try and be as quiet, but I'd like to get some feedback as to how you felt. Okay, so I'll do that now. So how did people feel when they were asking the question?
Ja, das ist schon ein bisschen. Ich hoffe, mein Kollege hat das auch verstanden. Das sind 22.
So nobody felt anything. Did you feel uncomfortable? Did you feel comfortable? Did you know which questions to ask?
I felt comfortable.
Okay. And what did you feel comfortable about?
Well, I think we've, because I recognized one of the persons, so
Okay.
it made it easier to start the interview, and I think that made us feel more comfortable.
Interesting, Julieta. That's absolutely right. If we know somebody, or we at least have a recognition of somebody, it does make it easier to talk to them.
Yeah.
However, if we're all going to be going out into business, then there's a good chance that we're not going to be knowing who we're working with. So the first thing we have to do is to try and recognize that we do feel uncomfortable talking to somebody we don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that's okay. That's okay. It's even more imposing when it's done face to face.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So recognizing how we feel and how we act, even in a simple thing around a conversation, is so different. Particularly, how do I put this? Nowadays, conversations are less and less. More of because of the situation just now, all our conversations are online. Yeah. So what we struggle to do is take the cue from the other person to be able to talk to them, or to be able to get the reaction from them. So it becomes what we would class as it becomes what would I say? It becomes a bit pausing a lot. There's breaks in the conversation. It doesn't really flow very well. In a conversation one-to-one, it can flow and it can pick that up. So that's something to think about when you're looking to go into business, when you're looking to get a job, is how you converse with people. Okay? So I'll turn that around then. How did people feel when they were being asked the question? Silence. Nobody wants to say anything. No? So was it easier being asked the question than asking the question?
I think some people had troubles asking questions, like coming up with what to ask.
Yeah, completely. That's a big part of it. And so how did you feel, Julieta? I'll just ask you, did you feel more comfortable asking questions or being asked a question?
I don't know. I think I felt honestly like quite comfortable in both situations, because like as I said, like one person I knew already, so it was easier to make the questions, but with the other person it was also easy because I was very curious to know what she was thinking or what she was going through.
Okay.
But I think at some points probably like the language barrier was there, so sometimes, I don't know, probably I had to repeat several or try to make myself clear in some questions.
Okay. So where are you from, Julieta?
I'm from Mexico.
Okay. And the person you were interviewing, where were they from?
China.
So we've got quite a divergence of cultures, haven't we?
Yes.
Yeah. So here's the concept we have. We're online having a conversation with somebody from Mexico, somebody from China, and you're both trying to converse in a language that isn't your first language.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we need to recognize that and be aware of that. Okay, so there's nothing wrong. If you needed to ask the question 3 times, that's okay. Yeah. But we need to be aware of that too, that if the person's asking the question 3 times, we need to be okay with that as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah. So no, that's a good point. That's a lovely point to make. So communication, we can do it. So would that person be happy for you to say something about them, Julieta? You picked up?
I think so. Like,
who was it?
Well, I took with 2. One was Chen,
Okay.
and the other one was Peng Yuqing.
Okay.
Yu Tsing, I think it's Yu Tsing.
Okay. So would either of them be okay? We're all sitting here, so if they're okay, then that's good.
Yeah, I mean, I think we just talk about like they are both from China
Okay.
and they both had previous studies on business,
Mm-hmm.
and they're both still here in Aberdeen.
Cool.
One is from Beijing, like Yu Qing is from Beijing, and the other one is from Xiamen. And we also talk a little bit of what they've done during the quarantine.
Okay. Cool. What did we find out what they're studying?
Yu Qing international accounting, and Chen he did too, and I think something with English, an English certificate, and something about business, I think.
Okay. Cool. And did we find out anything about their family or their background or anything like that?
Oh no, we didn't learn.
No, that's okay. You've done very well. That's fabulous. So did they interview you then, Julieta?
Yes.
Okay. Can either of them, are they willing to, would you allow them to talk about you?
Yeah, sure.
Cool. So would one of you, whoever it was that interviewed Julieta, could you tell me a bit about what you found out about Julieta? That'll be, see? Here's the challenge we have. That's okay. All right. So,
I make the hello.
Jen, go for it. Yes, please.
Yeah, but I talked with Julieta. Is I am the interviewer and she is the interviewee. So she asked me question. We do talk about our family's background. Like she asked me, do I miss my home, miss my family, and I answer her just not so much because I can use the online chat with family. So yeah, we do talk about the family's background, but not so much detail.
No, that's okay. So how long have you been in Scotland then, Chen Javi?
I came here last year in summer, and I might stay here maybe September or October. Maybe I will leave, come back to China. Yeah. And about the Julieta, I think because I am the time management about her interview and the Yoki, so I listened that she know about a lot of foreign language like the Spanish, not only the English, the other language she also know about that. So yeah, that is what I know about her. Okay,
no, that's great. Thank you, appreciate it. So let me see if I can unmute everybody. Okay, everybody should be unmuted now, so that should help. No, that's great. So what we're looking for is when it comes to sales, all that sales is about having a conversation. Mm-hmm. But the big part is it's not about you, it's about the person that you're talking to.
Yeah.
Okay. So how many of us have had a sales experience where we've gone in to buy something, and what has it been like? How have you found it?
I wouldn't say buy something, but more worked in cloud IT sales.
Okay.
And in that case, I was dealing with a lot of people who had been working in IT for 15 or 20 years. And I was a fresher, so I had gotten the jargon and how cloud IT worked very quickly. Whereas for them, the mental transition was, I mean, they were dinosaurs essentially. They had seen IT being built up on-premises data systems and things like that. So speaking to them, as you rightly said, what I picked up on was that it's not about what you say and what you know. It's about talking to the person in front of you. You can there are ways to do it. The person may understand the most complex lingo, they may understand the most simple lingo, or they may understand absolute layman's jargon. As a salesperson or as an IT consultant, because cloud IT is anything but sales. It's consulting. It's explaining it's finding the solution for them. It's almost like hand holding and being their shrink. So sales was about reading the room, reading the person, and being able to translate your knowledge into what they will understand, because that's your sell. They'll only buy it if they're going to understand it.
Okay.
And the sell was to explain and simplify things to them in whatever language he or she understood, such that you both are talking about the same thing and not having two different conversations. Else, it's a complete fail.
Yes, absolutely right. So the whole point of being a salesperson is to recognize who it is you're speaking with and the level of knowledge that they have, and moderating your language to their level. Yeah?
Absolutely, absolutely.
The other thing is not to recognize you're not there to sell a product.
Yes. It's not about products. You're there to sell a solution, not even a service. You're there to sell a solution which is based on what you have read as their need. Sometimes you also need to convince them that what they think is their need is not really their need, by once again breaking it down in their terms.
Yeah. And that's the challenge.
You're a consultant. Yeah, that's the challenge. That's why you're a consultant and not a salesperson.
Well, I would challenge you on that, because a consultant is a salesperson. They use all the sales skills.
Absolutely, but they're not. But a salesperson is under the umbrella of a consultant, but not necessarily vice versa.
Oh, ouch! None taken. So give me your understanding of what you feel a salesperson is based on your experience.
So there was a time when I was working with this IT firm, we had a huge tax structure overhaul happening in India, from local taxes to government service tax, what we call the GST. So to revamp those financial systems and our taxation structure, we brought in a couple of really experienced guys from a manufacturing firm. They were and for them, their sales guys had to go out and sell a unit. It didn't matter whether the person who bought the unit complained and said, look, I don't need this. And the sales guy said, well, you bought it, it's yours. So that's what I've seen as pure sales, because we've seen the older industries, the more brick and mortar kind of industries, versus the industry which is based on solutions that are built around services based on products and how they interact with each other. Ecosystems, if you will.
Okay.
So when you're working with products, services, and solutions based on those, I'd say you are employing all the sales methodologies, but it's your listening than your talking that's going to be more important in this case as a consultant.
Okay. So listening, not talking for a consultant. Okay, cool. Can you hold that thought, Akshay? That's great. How about anybody else? Does anybody else have a similar experience on a different understanding of what they feel a salesperson is?
I think a salesperson is dishonest. No, I'm joking. Actually, I used to actually do some hardware sales, so my experience was a bit different. But I feel like when I was selling to people, that it was also, I agree with Akshay, it's more it's like a conversation. Oh, I agree with you. It's a conversation. It's a natural conversation. You're talking about something actually outside the product. Often the best sales. Often you're not even talking about the product. The best sales is actually the best rapport with the person.
Okay.
Actually, what I feel is.
Yeah. I mean, sales doesn't have a great reputation. Okay. Hence, that's why we have so many different titles other than salesperson, business development manager, commercial manager, new business development manager, everything other than just straight sales. So I kind of recognise that sales there hasn't got the best profile. But if you do sales well, it's not about the product. And that's what we're going to look at this morning. So the whole point of that first exercise was to get you to focus not on you, but get you to focus on who you were talking to. And that's the focus for the rest of this morning. Okay, so if there's nothing more you take away from this, is that sales is all about focusing on the person that you are talking to or with. Yeah, and that's the message from this morning. But I thank you, Nuran and Ashkate. Yeah, that's been great. So what we're going to do now is we're going to have a break. We're going to break through till 5 past. So you come back at 5 past, and we will start the session again. And we'll look at elevator pitches and get your idea what you feel an elevator pitch and what it isn't. And then we'll see if we can get a video and we can have a chat about what you think happened on the content on the video. So we'll see everybody again at 11:05. Okay, so I will pause the recording. Okay, how is everyone? All good after their tea break, coffee break, all got water, whatever it is you need? What I'll do is I'll unmute you. There we go. So everybody's back in the room again. Cool. Okay, we're back recording again, just so everybody's aware. So how did everybody feel about that first session? I know it's a bit bitty because it's done online. So as I was saying before the break, it's about recognizing that it's the person you're speaking to that's the focus, not about us. It's about the person we're talking to. So what I'd like to put now on the table is, would anybody like to give me a definition of what they feel an elevator pitch is? Or has anybody heard of an elevator pitch? No?
Yeah, basically, it must be like a short pitch. Like as you are in an elevator, you have to explain what you're selling to somebody to make the person excited about it and to take action about it. But it has to be really short. So be really
okay. Yep, it has to be short. This is the bit that's about you. Is there somebody? Is somebody holding a conversation in the background? Cool. Okay. I'm hoping that I don't have to mute everyone. I'd rather it was that way. So if we can just kind of make sure that we're just all focused on this, and anything going on in the background can maybe be put to the side, that would be great. Thank you. So yeah, Gabriel, it's about an elevator pitch is nothing more than telling them who you are, what you do, and a bit about the business. So for instance, an elevator pitch that would be mine would be, hi, my name's Peter Waggett. I'm the Managing Director of Vertical Motives. I work with organizations to help them understand their sales process. And I'm also an executive coach, and I work one-to-one with individuals who have a neurodiversity. That's an elevator pitch. Now, you can have more than one depending on who it is you're speaking with. So if I'm just speaking with a coach, then I'd maybe just do the coaching part of it. Or if I'm speaking with a business, it may not be necessary to tell them about the coaching part. So it depends. You can have more than one. And the whole point of an elevator pitch is to allow you to go up when you don't know somebody, and have the confidence to speak to them. I'm going to mute everybody. So yeah, to have the confidence to talk to that person about who you are, and it gives you that little bit of time to calm down and not be so nervous. So an elevator pitch is used all the time, and I use them regularly. And the reason I use them is A, I'm meeting new people, but B, I'm an introvert. So going into a room full of 100 or 200 people, I'm quite happy to go into the corner and send emails on my phone. But having that elevator pitch and having that 20 or 30-second dialogue that I can say like that and can just can recite it very quickly, if you like, then it's great, it helps. So hi, my name is Peter Waggett. I'm the Managing Director of Vertical Motives. I work with organisations to help them understand the sales process, and I'm an executive coach, and I work one-to-one with individuals with a neurodiversity. You can keep churning that out. And the big thing with the elevator pitches, and it's designed that way, is to pick up on, is to have that little thing at the end where folk may be a bit curious. So the curious thing they'll pick up with my elevator pitch potentially is neurodiversity. And what is neurodiversity? So that's things like ADHD, Asperger's, dyslexia, dyspraxia, stress, anxiety, all those kinds of things. Okay, so that's what an elevator pitch is. It's about a 30-second monologue where you give the person a bit of information about you. And the reason it came about was because it's when you're going up to your room, it's 30 seconds in an elevator to get to your room. It's as simple as that. So I would say to you to try and refine and start to put together an elevator pitch, because you'll need them when you leave the university, when you have a job, when you go to networking events, or you go to conferences or exhibitions or whatever, then you absolutely will need elevator pitches. Because at the back of an elevator pitch is, here's my card. Or you just scan something now on your phone. If you've got the app, you can scan business cards now and it automatically uploads to your contacts. So that kind of thing, that preempts the bit, but you still need the elevator pitch. We still need to talk to people. Is that okay? Is everybody all right with that?
Every day Americans
Yeah.
losing
Yeah.
their lives, and we're still seeing
Yeah.
every day.
They're losing their lives everywhere in the world.
Yeah.
And maybe that's a question you should ask to China. Don't ask me, ask China that question. And you ask them that question, they get
So we've got a challenge here. We've got some people that are obviously having conversations out with what we're doing here. So unfortunately, I'm going to have to put everybody on mute. So if you do want to say something, remember, just press the space bar and you can talk. It's just like a radio walkie-talkie. If you press the space bar and hold it down, we can chat. So what we're going to move into now is I'm going to ask you to watch a video. It's about 20 minutes long. It's on the psychology of selling. And what this leads into, particularly for our international business management and our marketing people, is it then takes us into how sales and marketing work together. So this will give you an idea of what we're looking from a sales standpoint, and to Akshay and Nuran's earlier kind of observations and experiences prior to the break of salespeople. This hopefully may give them a new perspective of what I feel a good salesperson will look like. Okay, so have a look at this for about 20 minutes, then we'll bring you all back into the room again, and then we can have a discussion around it. So let me just get this on the screen. And it's gone. See if I can find it. There we go. There we go.
Do you ever notice that moment where you run over that prospect? But on the other hand, have you ever seen when look at things when you just clearly
Come on. So take it some folk are you finding that difficult? Is the sound going out and in? Yeah. Are some of you finding that difficult, yeah? Okay. So yeah, so Hortensia's just shared the link. It's on YouTube. Okay, so we'll go past that then. We'll stop the video. So what Mark's talking about is how we work on sales and what we talk about within sales. So what I want to talk to you about is you got the case study on. Can somebody pause their music in the background? Thank you. That's great. So what we're talking about is the case study, and we're looking at the Danny Trout case study. So when everybody got that, I want you to have a look at that. Did everybody have a look at it? Of course you did. I want you to have a think about, what is it, if you were going in to see Danny, what is it you would talk to them about? Has anybody any ideas what they think? No? Nobody got any idea? Has anybody looked at the case study? Do you want a couple of minutes to look at it? Okay, yeah. So we'll give everybody a couple of minutes. Have a look at the Danny Trout case study that was there as part of the workbook. I'll give you 5 minutes to look at it, and then we'll come back and we can have a discussion about how you feel you would first go in to see Danny, and what was it you would talk to Danny about. Okay, so I'll give you 5 minutes. I'll mute everybody, and then I'll unmute you in about 5 minutes. So come back here for 11:25.
instead they're just saying, hey, so tell me, where are you feeling that pain? What's going on? Help me understand, right?
Okay. So has everybody managed to have a look at the Danny Trout case scenario? Okay. So I'm going to unmute you all and we can try and have a chat. Hopefully nobody's got anything going on in the background and everybody's focused on this, which would be good. Let's try it and see.
Hi.
Hey, we're back again. Cool.
Hi.
Hi.
Peter.
Hey.
Yeah, I think we have a problem. Like at least like marketing management, we didn't get any case study.
You didn't get it, Hortensia? Ah, okay. I noticed
So-
Julietta's just shared it on the chat. If you go on your chat, you should see it. No? There should be, on the chat bar, if you go to, there should be, Julietta's just shared it to everyone. So with some of you on the communication, on the marketing course, didn't get the,
No.
so you didn't get the workbook either?
No.
Okay, I'll forward that and you can get that. So the workbook has the connection. I noticed that somebody shared, who shared the, yeah, there we go. Hortensia shared the link. So the link's in the workbook too to the YouTube video. Okay, has everybody managed to get a look at that?
Yes.
Danny Trout scenario, have you managed to download it now?
Yeah, we saw it. It was sent to us.
Okay. Okay, Victor, do you want, seeing as you've done this before, you should know exactly what I'm going to say. So let me take you as, let me speak to you and say, okay, if you were going in to see Danny Trout, what would you want to talk to him about?
I'm just going to introduce myself to him.
Okay.
Hi, my name is Victor. I'm the Associate Executive of Oracle.
Yep. Anything else?
Oracle. We help companies manage their human capital. Our solutions are able to focus on attracting the correct talent and, for companies. Basically, a few minutes, a few seconds.
Okay.
You are not to sell to Danny Trout. You are just introducing yourself.
Yes. So so what do you think? What if I was to ask you one of the things? What do you think? One thing that Danny Trout is looking for?
Danny Trout is looking for solutions that can help, attract talent.
Yep.
Human resource, how to get young professionals, how to, good workers to fit in the role, to work for him.
Yes, absolutely right. That's perfect. Thank you, Victor. Appreciate it. So would anybody else like to tell me something else that Danny Trout? So what Victor said is Danny is looking for somebody to help him with new talent. Is there anything else that Danny's looking for? No? Has everybody managed to read the case study very quickly? So everybody's unmuted. I don't know how you're.
Oh, yeah. So I think aside from looking for a way to attract talent, Danny's also looking for expertise because that is something he's lacking.
Okay.
So that would be a major selling point.
Yeah. And anything else, Aisha, about that? What is kind of expertise is he looking for?
So in the HR sphere, he doesn't really have much expertise, and yet here he is trying to arrange a team that is supposed to take his business to like an international level.
Okay. So so he's looking for some HR support.
Support, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Anything else? Would there be a third one? Anybody else see a third one? What type of company do you work for? Or how big a company do you work for? An easier answer. Does the company you work for, is it global?
Yes,
Yeah.
it appears to be global.
Cool.
It's had successes in other parts of the world.
Absolutely. So would a global company be of interest to Danny?
Very much so, as he's looking to, or his company is looking to diversify into other locations.
Correct. And do you have experience of helping companies like Danny?
Yes, with positive results.
From where?
From the US.
Cool. Yeah. So that's part of, that's perfect, Aisha. Aisha, thank you. And also to Victor as well. So that's what you'd be looking for if you were going in to do a sales call. That's the first thing you'll be looking at is, okay, what is it the customer's looking for? So you're not going in to sell anything. So you never sell at a first call. Okay. What we look to do at the first call is to find out information about our customer. So the information that Victor and Aisha have given you tells you that. So Danny is looking for new talent. So he's looking to expand the business. He's also looking for HR support because he's not an HR person himself. And he's also looking for a company that he can work with that has multiple locations globally because he's looking to expand the business globally. So there would be the three main areas that you could focus on when you're looking to speak to Danny. So bearing in mind that, what would you then look to do? What would be, if you've got that information, what would be your next course of action? Would be to walk out the door and never go back and see him again.
Sorry, I was absent yesterday, but today we're gonna do Love Dr. Harry. So you know the drill. Welcome to Harry's Practice. Put your relationship problems or what you need advice on in there, and I'll do as best I can to answer the best ones and give you amazing or terrible advice. If you guys are like, come on, lads, don't really love to go through this right now, so you have to keep them on the edge of their seat, keep them wanting more and guessing. Who knows what's going to happen? So just send news every now and then. You know, you'll be on FaceTime and like, oh, there's my left titty. You know.
I think somebody's mic's your mic's on, and I'm getting a conversation that has nothing to do with this.
You guys, it's like your quality time together, and then he's just like randomly whipping off to go hang out.
Can you mute your mic? Cool. Okay. So what we're looking to do is, for the sales call for this, is exactly as Aisha and Victor have just said to you, is to try and understand from Danny what it is he's looking for. That's a good point. So Aisha said that it would be good to understand how Oracle solution can be tailored to suit Danny's objectives. Absolutely. So the thing to go away with is the more information we have from the client after the first call, the more chance we've got of putting together a proposal to go back to the client with that the client will understand and will actually, it will resonate with them. So when you go into the shops and you go to buy something, are you ever asked what it is you're looking for? And do you ever feel then listened to? The answer to that will probably be no. So what we tend to find is that in a sales environment, what tends to happen is we don't use the two ears, we use the one mouth, and we talk. And we talk about things rather than listening. So at the first call, it's all about listening. So when we did this before, and we did it back in, I think it was October, we would put you into groups of 4 or 5, and I would play the part of Danny. And the group of 4 or 5 would come in and they'd ask some questions, and then we'd have a bit of a debrief afterwards. And most of the groups found that they were talking more than the client, so more than me. When you're speaking to somebody for the first time, it's really good to adopt the approach of you talk for 20% and get them to talk 80. So whether that's 2, 3, 4, 5 minutes, 10 or whatever, the 20% you talk and the 80% they talk. That will give you a lot of information, particularly if you're in a sales call. Okay, so what I want you to look at now is I'm going to bring up a slide here, and I want you to tell me what you think. So which one of the 5 profiles there do you feel would be the most effective as a salesperson? I'll give you a couple of minutes to have a look. Is that better for everybody?
Hi, Peter.
Yes.
I just have a question.
Yes.
You mentioned that sales is about listening to your client.
Yes.
And allowing them to talk. But how can you get someone to talk in the first place? Because I think that's an important skill that a salesperson should have to, to extract that information, what the customer really wants. So how should you do that?
Okay, that's a great question, and thank you for asking it. That's exactly right. So when you go in, what you need to have is 4 or 5 questions that you've got in there that you're going in to ask to get the information. So I need this kind of information. What questions do I need to ask in order to get that information? Now, going in, first of all, it's probably you want to understand their business. So if you can get to understand, for instance, let's take Danny, what Danny's business is, when it started, where it currently is, what they're looking to do with the business over the next 2 or 3 years as far as grow it, that gives you a better chance of getting the right questions. So based on that, what would be maybe one question that you could ask that you feel could get Danny talking?
Maybe I could ask what's his future plan and what aspects of the business, if there's a gap that we can fill in, maybe something like that.
Absolutely. Just be careful. We're not looking to sell. So we wouldn't put in anything around Oracle just now. So what you could ask is, hey, that's great. I see you're into your new role. That's fantastic, Danny. Can you tell me a bit about the business? And let them go off. Because most people whose business it is love talking about their business. Same as salespeople love talking about themselves and sales.
But
So turn it around.
I'm just thinking that if he has done it several times before, there's a chance that, you know, he might be burned out doing the same thing time and time again. Yeah.
That's a good question, and I'll probably guarantee he probably hasn't. Hence, that's why sales isn't done very well, because the first thing to do is to talk about, he'll get quite surprised because he expects you to sell him something. So if you can stop from selling him something and more talk to him about him and his business and where his challenges are, and you do that right through the first call, then you're in a better and a stronger position to actually get him to allow you to come back and talk to him about your product.
Okay.
Does that help?
Yep, thanks.
So that's why we'd use for everything. So if you're going in to see a new business or something for the first time, go in and find out about their business. They're expecting you to talk about your product. Don't. Do something your competitors won't do. So have you ever seen an advert where it says, don't buy my product, it's rubbish? No, because there is no advert. We all go in saying our products are the best, but it's not about the product. So Neil Rackham, who is a guest professor at Edinburgh Napier University, Neil invented spin selling, S-P-I-N, which is a kind of a style of selling, and he invented that back in the 80s. And what Neil says is it's not about your product, it's about how you sell. So it's nothing to do with your product, it's about how you sell, you as an individual. And that has a huge bearing on things, because then you take the product out of the equation and then you're on a one-to-one with the person talking about their business. And that can be very helpful, and it gets you a lot of information. So if you make your questions, your 4 or 5 questions around, I want to understand about Danny's business, then that will allow him to talk, and let him talk. Don't jump in. The more information you can get, the better. Because what we can then do, so as a salesperson, we are nothing more than a conduit between the customer and head office in both directions. If we can get information from the customer, we can take that back and we can possibly give that to some other departments within our business. Okay. So going back to what's on the screen, would anybody be willing to share who they feel would be the most effective of those 5 sales profiles? No? Somebody have a guess. You've got a 1 in 5 chance of getting it right. Okay, let me go in. There we go. Sorry, my fault.
Yeah, I think what GP said was right. A combination between the relationship builder and the problem solver is a good way to go. It's contextual.
Okay. Anything more about that, actually?
Well, as we said, sales is about building a rapport and having your facts very clear.
Okay.
And your facts are not just relative to your product or your service or your solution, but your facts as they relate to the problem at hand and what is wanted by the potential customer sitting in front of you.
Got you.
Whereas that's the part of the relationship builder. And of course, you have to be polite, build a rapport and all of that. That's the getting along part. But the problem solver bit comes in when in terms of build strong advocates based on details. The advocates cannot be built if you're not addressing all the details that are part of the solution and the problem, because you can't sell something halfway. And based on that, you're going to lead to ensuring that all the problems are solved. It may not be immediate, but in the long run, your solution will take care of everything, because you have to remember, as a consultant, you're not selling a one-time solution. You're trying to get someone to buy into the relationship with your firm for prolonged consulting or sales relationships, so as to speak. And it's the getting along with everyone that is going to build and form a loop with reliably responding to internal and external stakeholders. So there's sort of a loop that both a combination of these two salespeople create, in terms of strong advocates come from being detail oriented and eventually sorting out all problems, and getting along with everyone means being viewed as a reliable person, both internally and externally.
Okay. Yep. I'll go with that.
Yeah. Thanks, GP, for that combination. I was working on that.
Just to, if I may.
Yes.
The relationship builder and the reactive problem solver, like I said, and like Ashay alluded to, would make most of the qualities a fantastic salesperson should have. However, there are some elements of the challenger, the hard worker, the lone wolf that would also be vital. So for example, you need a salesperson to really understand the customer's business, but you don't want a salesperson to push the customer to breaking point. You also need a salesperson that is confident, self-assured, as in the lone wolf, and also someone that is self-motivated and also would be willing to look forward to feedback and improve, which is part of what the hard worker is. So most of it would be the relationship builder and the reactive problem solver, but as every other aspects of management, contextually, other elements of all the profiles would also be relevant.
Okay. Yep. I agree with that. Not a problem. What about the lone wolf, though, who's difficult to control?
I feel that the lone wolf is probably following own instincts, self-assured. Yes, when he's around in a situation where no one really knows what they're doing and maybe they've got bad sales leadership, then the lone wolf works fine. It's contextual. But by and large, there tends to be a sales strategy, team working. And as we've been studying in our leadership, change management modules, etc., everybody is moving slowly towards more flatter structures, towards more collaboration, more conversation. And in times like that, the lone wolf is just probably going to break strategy, unless he gets really lucky and he feels that everyone's doing everything entirely wrong and he does crack something. But for the collective good, it doesn't really work.
Okay. So what about the relationship builder who potentially is a yes person?
See, the relationship builder is probably not, is potentially a yes person, but he's probably not. Building relationships is not, if you look at it in the realistic real world sense, is also about sort of developing a rapport. And that doesn't come on just saying yes. It comes out of healthy argument and debate and having your facts in place. Building strong advocates does not mean, I mean, a very clear point is there's building strong advocates. That is not based on being a yes person. That's about having your facts right and putting them across politely, and hence building a relationship. I don't see that as being a yes man.
Okay. So what about the third bit down there on that, Ashay?
The gets along with everyone.
Yeah.
Yeah, gets along with everyone because he's sort of defined himself as he or she have defined themselves as a person, saying that I know my facts. I'm not going to condescend to you, but at the same time, I will be very clear as a person that I'm right. I know when I'm right, but I'm okay to listening. I'm open to listen to what you're saying because everything's learning. That's how you get along with everyone, not by being a yes man.
Okay. Yep. Get that. Absolutely. So if the relationship builder was to be challenged on price by the customer, do you think they would cave?
They might. I think with all these qualities, there are positive aspects to it and negative aspects to it.
Yeah.
So you don't want to be a hard worker to the point that you don't give up, but then waste valuable time pursuing a lead that won't get to anywhere, or, you know, be a reactive problem solver that you just stick to your stakeholders and tend to become more bureaucratic and not focused on your customers instead. So there has to be a balance between a combination of everything. I think even the lone wolf is a sales characteristics that's important to some.
Okay. Yep.
You want someone that follows instincts, because sometimes that split-second decision, the ability to do that, opens up a whole new opportunity window.
Possibly, absolutely right. So so this has come out of the Challenger Sale, which is another framework, and it's a book that was written in 2011 by Brett Adamson and Matthew Dixon. And it's I have a lot that I agree with within the book. I don't agree with everything, but to me, this is how sales needs to be done in the 21st, in 2020. And what they've said is they did this over 7 years. They did a survey around the world, and what they found was they found these 5 profiles, the main profiles of salespeople, and the most effective one in a B2B complex sale was the Challenger. The Challenger one in the middle. The most ineffective one, Ashay, was the relationship builder in a complex B2B sale. So what they found is that there has been a shift by the customer. And this is now where we need marketing. So all the MSc marketing people that are on this morning, now's your chance to listen in for the next hour and a bit. Because what's happened now is that the customer has shifted focus, and sales and marketing now need to be more aligned than ever before. And what the Challenger salesperson does is exactly that. Challenges the customer on their current working practices to try to see if there's new ways or could it be done differently. So what we were talking about earlier on, understands the customer's business first, isn't interested in selling them a product just now, wants to know the customer's business and will know the customer's business inside out. Loves to debate, not necessarily to win, but just to debate. And pushes the customer. So you could change that out. So the wording in there is from the book. And so pushes the customer or challenges the customer to think differently. And that's that different view of the world. So those of you that have a bit of experience with me from before, you'll recognize that my challenge is that sales is always done from the salesperson's standpoint. And that's the wrong way to look at sales. That's what experience you have as being sold to, because you've not been listened to, you've not been asked the right questions. They don't really, all they want to do is sell you what they want to sell you. So how many times if something's sitting on the shelf for a while, suddenly it's the best thing to have out there because it's going slow. Well, that's not really sales. So sales is about understanding the person's business and recognizing how can you help them, A, by understanding their business, and B, by can you work with them to implement one of your products that would help make their business easier? Is that helpful? Does anybody have, would anybody like to say anything about that? Do they want to challenge me on it? I'm okay with that. Does that make sense? So the challenger salesperson challenges from a good standpoint. It's not a challenge in an aggressive manner. It's a challenge to talk to them and say, okay, could we do this differently? So this came about, so I was working in Canada and I went to see this large General Motors dealer and we hadn't got the business. I was working for Castrol and we didn't have the business. Shell was in there. They were about 27% cheaper than us per litre on oil. This dealer sells 100,000 litres of oil a year. So if he's going to take Castrol oil, on his bottom line straight away is $27,000. So we were asked to go in because they had just built a new bit on the side of the building, which is what they call a loop. It was a fast loop. So what you do in North America is you go in about every 5,000 kilometers to have your oil changed. So what they can do over there is you actually have cars all lined up and you just go in and it's about 25 to 30 minutes and they change your oil out and you go out the other side and it's all done. And they just built this loop station on the side of the dealership. They were the first one to have it in Canada. And we got taken round by the general manager and the owner. So Mary is the owner of the dealership and Dave was the general manager. And we got taken round, showed the whole thing, and then we went back up the stairs to the main area. And I had a regional manager with me who went off to talk. It was his customer, so he went off to talk to them, Larry. And I was talking with Dave. And Dave showed me the plans for the lube, and he says, this is where it is, this is what's going to happen. So you'll come in here, you'll get your, bless you, you'll get your carpets vacuumed, you'll get an alignment check, you'll then go through, get your oil changed, you'll then come round the back, the car will then be washed, and you'll get out the other end. And he says, my idea is to have it for $29 in 29 minutes. And I kind of looked at him, and I said, and I take it, here's where there's a calculated gamble. So this could potentially be the lone wolf, possibly, but it's more a challenger. I said to him, for all that you're offering on that oil change, I would be charging $49.99. And he kind of looked at me and he laughed. And him and Mary then went away and had a conversation for 2 minutes. He came back, he says, you've got the business. I said, but Shell's coming in tomorrow. He says, I don't care. Mary's away to phone Shell now and tell them not to bother coming up from Houston. Now, the reason I did that was because I knew of other lube places in the area that were doing a basic oil change for $29.99. What Dave was offering was far more. So there was value to it. So I took a chance, knowing the business roundabout, and said, you could offer more. So, and he did. And he came back to me, and he's always come back to me. He's a great friend of mine now. But he came back to me, he said, if I'd gone in at $29.99, we would have been bust. So that's the difference with a challenger. It's understanding your business's roundabout and allowing that then to use that to get a sale. I never once talked about oil. So that's what it's about. Sales is not about selling a product. Sales is about understanding the customer, understanding where they have pain or where they have a challenge. And what you do is you make that job easier. So I made Dave's job easier because his bottom line would balance. Simple as that. Okay, so that's what we've got to think about. Is everybody okay with that? We're now at 12 o'clock. We're going to have a break and then we'll have the final session. The final session is about understanding you. So I'm hoping that there's maybe going to be a bit more of a conversation about this, because in order to be effective in sales, first we need to understand ourselves. And that's for everything. And then we'll show you how understanding you and understanding your customer then fits in with sales and marketing. So the last bit would be very pertinent for anybody that's going through marketing. and it would help us salespeople out there if they knew a bit about it. So we'll have a break now, and we'll come back at 12:10, if everybody's okay with that. I will see you in 10 minutes' time. Okay, I've put in, I've changed that so you can unmute yourselves. Hopefully that works now. You can unmute yourselves if you want to. I'll put that in. So hopefully that now starts to work, and we can move forward. So what we've talked about this morning is understanding from a sales perspective how we need to go into a sales call, and how a lot of the time possibly the salespeople don't go in with the right perspective. And the perspective is always to do it from the person's point of view, the customer's point of view, the person that you're speaking to. It's not to be done from us. If it's done from us, then sales has a potential to go badly and off the rails. And I only have to look at things like PPI, buying a car, buying insurance, all these things where the banks over the years have had to repay millions upon millions of pounds for things being sold wrongly. So we still have it now, even in 2020. If we have a perspective where we look at it from the customer's focus and perspective, there's less chance of the sale going badly or wrongly, or being sold something that the customer doesn't want. So what I want to talk about now is understanding you. And I'm going to try and give you a quick, hopefully everybody can see this. I'll zoom this in a bit more and let everybody see. So hopefully everybody can see that. So what this is about is emotional intelligence. And it's becoming more and more of a tool to help us understand how our brain works and how our mind works. So it's something I'm very interested in as a coach. I need to understand how people think and act and talk and interact with one another, and also what they're thinking when they're not feeling so good, so that I can help them understand that and maybe help them with some strategies to get them through, particularly now. So we're in a difficult situation just now where we're not working from home. It's a different thing. We are basically being, not imprisoned, but we're being put in our houses and we don't have the choice other than to go out for a walk. Now that's going to change. We can now go out as often as we like. However, it's still not working from home. I work from home, but I still go out and see clients face to face. That's not going to be possible for the next little while to do that. So we're still going to be doing a lot of things online and a lot of things we're not comfortable or natural doing. So what this talks about is, there are 5 areas. So they are the categories. So we've self-perception, self-expression, interpersonal, decision-making, and stress management. And then the interesting bit for me is the subcategories, if you like. So things like self-regard, optimism, problem solving. Oh, somebody else joined. Cool. So all these things are interdependent. So if some of you have done psychometric testing in the past, basically what that does is it tries to measure your cognitive ability from a lower score to a higher score and give you a mark out of whatever for that. And the higher the mark, the more ability you have in that area. This is different. This is about your emotional intelligence. So, so your IQ level can't really change. Your IQ is your IQ. And your cognitive abilities don't really move much. But with emotional intelligence, we can actually manage our emotional intelligence and we can have our scores moving about a bit. What this tells me and what this is about is these 15 subcharacteristics in there all link to one another. And how could I explain that to you? So what we're looking to do is we're looking to try and make the distance between a peak and a curve as small as possible because they're linked to one another. So optimism, and let me get another one. So if I look at optimism and I look at reality testing. So we're looking at optimism on stress management and we're looking at reality testing on decision making. Now, if somebody's an optimistic person, there is a potential for them to be over-optimistic and everything's always successful, everything's always good, everything's always right. And then you have somebody who has a high score in reality testing. They potentially say, oh, it's the real world, this is what it's about, this is it. And they can tend to be in conflict with one another. And what it is we need to have an optimism and we need to have reality, and we need to have them both. It's how do we get them to put them close together? So what we look to do is we look to work with people to make them understand where they potentially are maybe a bit over-optimistic or where potentially they are being a bit harsh on the reality testing. And a bit like we're doing with this coronavirus is we're flattening the peak. We want the peak and the trough to come closer together. So that's what it is about understanding us. So the biggest thing I could tell you about understanding you is to understand self-awareness. That's the place to start. So in self-awareness, what that's about is what makes us happy, what makes us sad, what makes us frustrated, what makes us angry, all these different emotions that we have. And if we can understand that, then so I think it was Edward said earlier on about what questions you can ask. What questions would you like somebody to ask you if they were coming in to talk about your business? And if you think of it from that standpoint, then you're in a better place to start to have a relationship or a bond or whatever word you want to use with your customer. So before I go into a call, I will sit and work out 3 or 4 questions I want to ask, but I will ask them to myself. And if I feel that I'm comfortable answering those questions and I feel that the question isn't too pointed or isn't too strong a question, then I'm okay with it. And that's okay to sit and do that for a while until you've got questions that you want to ask. So the first thing to understand is be self-aware, is understand yourself. What makes you happy, sad, giggly, all these different things. And that's where to go with that. And the tool to use for that is to reflect at the end of each day. So a bit of reflection, a bit of mindfulness, things like that will help you. So before I came into this morning, I sat at my desk and I did my 5 minutes of my own mindfulness to get myself in a place ready for this. to take this forward, because there's a potential for things to go wrong, which have gone wrong. The video didn't work. People are the link sometimes isn't great with the audio, and that's a potential for this end or at their end or whatever, just with the lots of people on it. So we've got to recognise that and not get frustrated and not get angry. These things happen. It's out with my control. I can only control what I can control. Therefore, we cut the video short. We've given everybody the link to the video, which is in their workbooks as well, and we can go on with that. Now, that could potentially have hijacked this whole morning, but it didn't, because I recognized that there's no point me getting upset about it because it doesn't do any good. That's what this is around. So understanding ourselves first is a huge part of that. Okay. Has anybody any questions on that? No? Okay. Okay. So understanding us. So then we go into the next part is about understanding our customer. And that comes from a number of areas. I'm going to put up a slide here, and I want you to look at this. Well, put that back a bit. Try that there. And let me see if I can share this with you. Now, it's a busy slide, and I apologize, but it gives you an idea. So somebody was asking earlier on about challenging. I'll try and make it a bit bigger if I can. Without, don't worry if you can't. So there's quite a bit in there around what differentiates somebody as it's a challenger sales from somebody else. So if we go through it and we look at it, so this bit up here, so we teach. Yep. So in this bit we teach, and this is where I need help from marketing department. And what that means is I'm looking for the marketing department to keep in touch with my customer, to tell them about things that are happening that affect their business on a global scale. I'm going to have to put everybody on mute again. Okay, so everybody's on.
Just students.
Okay, so everybody's on mute. So what if I'm giving you the chance? Somebody's unmuted their phone and you can hear a lot of background noise. Somebody's child's on their phone. Cool. Okay. So what we're looking to do is we're looking to for differentiation, and what that really means is we're trying to get we're trying to give the customer more of an insight into what's happening around the world in their business, and that comes from marketing. And I can then build on that. So if somebody comes into me and talks to the client about that, then I can follow up because they're telling me. So my marketing departments tell me, I can then go in and see them and say, yep, that's what's happening. This is what's going on. So that's what the difference is with the Challenger Sale. It's about teaching people. Constructive tension it's a difficult one to practice straight away. It takes a lot of time to get this right. So what constructive tension is actually challenging the customer on the way they currently do business to try and see if there's different ways to do it. And it's done from a place of trying to get their business to be easier and more effective and quicker and all these things. But if you talk about it, it's okay to talk about it, just don't hold it personally. The challenge is that we become a bit personal in it, we try and push it on people. It's not about that. It's just about making the customer aware that there's other things out there, there's other options around it. Okay. We also tailor things. So Challenger reps communicate sales. We tailor things to the customer. So for instance, somebody said earlier in the COVID, I think it was Ashay said first thing in the morning when we were on, about recognizing who your audience is. So if I talk automotive speak to somebody that's not in automotive, it's not going to go very well. And it's the same if somebody talks jargon and I don't know. So make sure that when you're talking to a customer, you're talking a language that you both recognize. And that's where the tailors it for resonance. Resonance means it has an effect. It resonates with the customer. They recognize what you're talking about. If you just go in and talk jargon or technical speak, then there's a good chance that it just will go over the customer's head. Okay. The third one is a kind of challenge, and I'll be interested to see what you think of that one, is to take control of the sale. Now, a challenger person or a good salesperson will control the sale, but that doesn't mean that they're controlling. So controlling the sale means they know what they want to get and they have an outcome at the end of it. How they get there may be by different routes, but the control of the sale is to know what is it they want to get, what is the outcome of the sale that they're going in or the visit they're going in to do. And that's what taking control of the sale is. In between all that, the customer may take them off in tangents, and that's okay. As long as you have an end goal or an end outcome in mind, then allow the customer to take you away. Let them let them take you for a guided tour of their business. You might find out more than you ever knew by just talking to them. So it's things like that. So that's what happens within Challenger Sale. Has anybody any questions on that? That is a busy slide.
I think constructive tension as a sales tool is extremely important, especially when you say it's important to create a juxtaposition of what is out there, so that the customer knows their options, and that's where, and then it feeds into sort of you're explaining to them what your business does and why the other guys are great too, but this is where we differentiate. This is what we can do for you. And in doing that, you're subtly taking control of the situation.
Yep, absolutely. But what you're also subtly doing is letting the customer know that if they want to be different in the marketplace,
yeah,
here's where they can be different. So it could be cutting edge things, Ashay.
Yeah, it could be cutting edge, but it could also be as Amazon says, moving with the eye of the storm, which is that is the place to buy in right now to move forward in terms of in terms of growth and sort of being on the cusp of development and rolling with it.
Yeah, I'd agree with that one. And if they don't accept it, that's okay. So the other thing to do in sales is you're not going to win 100% of the time.
Yeah, that's perfectly fine. Sometimes you just leave them with their options and you walk away. Sometimes what you're trying to sell is the long game for 5 years, and they're so short-sighted that they're only interested in what they're spending over the next 2 years. And it's happened that sometimes they've spent and they've been very happy about saving. Then some senior of theirs has asked for projections and they call you and they say, hi, so you were talking about 5-year savings. Like, yeah, but okay. So it's sort of, you can create by walking away. Sometimes you actually show more power than by staying there and getting into a debate sometimes.
Yes, absolutely. And that's a good point to make. Be careful not to take this personally. That's the thing. Yeah. Just because they don't want to accept your perspective, that just potentially means that they're not the right customer for your business.
Yeah, and they're never really going to buy into anything by you pushing it onto them. They've got to buy into it themselves.
Yes.
That's what you need to get them to do. Your task is not to sell it. Your task is to get them to believe it and buy in.
Yeah. And in a first sales call, your task is to understand whether that customer is a customer of yours or whether and they are a good fit or they're not. It's not about selling the product. So the whole point of a first sales call is exactly as you're saying, Ashay, is to understand, does that customer have a similar mindset to me or to my business or to the product that would allow me to come back and speak to them to see the opportunity? Or all the, so for instance, if you're going in to sell you wouldn't go in and sell a Cartier watch to people that are earning 10 grand a year income.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's that kind of understanding. So I've been fortunate that all my life I've sold premium product. So price really, I had no control over price. Although many times I'd love to have had control, I didn't. So when I worked for Michelin and I worked for Continental and I worked for Castro, we were premium products. So if I'm talking to a customer and they keep telling me, oh yeah, you need to be cheaper, you need to be cheaper, I had to effectively say, okay, maybe this customer isn't for us. Now that's very difficult to do, but that's what you have to do.
Absolutely. I mean, in an Indian market where price is king, and even if you're selling the most cutting edge stuff, their first question is going to be how much. Whether it's good for them or not, it's always going to be a question of how much.
Yes. But if that how much is, it's not about being cheap, it's how much, so how much are they willing to pay for your product?
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's all about delivering value to them.
Although sometimes, to be honest, it is about being cheap.
Oh, totally. But then they're not the customer for you.
Exactly. Exactly.
You know, that's the thing. That's fine. Yeah, absolutely. There's customers out there that's all price. And you go, okay, well, they're not for me. Totally get that. But it's understanding who your customer is. That's the important part. And marketing can help with that. Because if they're constantly letting customers know through a newsletter or an email blast or whatever, that here's what's happening cutting edge within your industry, and you then have the ability to go in and talk about that, you've got an idea, yeah, that's too early for us. We're going to wait a while. And you go, okay, well, they're not really cutting edge. So we'll wait a while with them. Where there's other customers that want to be at the front of the queue. And price isn't an issue. So for instance, the best kind of example of that is still Apple. Apple come out with an Apple 11, everybody queues around the block to get it, whereas if you wait a week, you'll get it. But they want to be the first. And Apple know that. Apple know their market. You know, they know that they can set a price. You don't get discount in Apple, and if you do, it's 2 or 3%. That's all they discount their products. Their products are consistently at the same price all the time. So it's recognizing that situation and what can we do about it. So that's where I start to need marketing to come into that, because they can help me understand who my customer is and to recognize, are they a customer that I want to deal with, or are they a customer that really isn't a fit for my business? Okay, so that's quite a busy slide, that one, but that was important to put that one in. We're going to move on now to kind of the final bit, which is around power of insights. So power of insights is this slide here, which I will share with you. So we've talked a lot about sales and a bit about marketing, and I really want to finish this off by saying that there is a team that needs to be built around sales and marketing, and they work together. So they kind of mesh with one another. They're not separate. There seems to be a bit of a body of opinion out there just now, and depending who you speak to, that sales comes under marketing and that they're involved in marketing. They're actually separate things. They are specific to their own areas, but one doesn't work without the other. We need them both in order to work. So where marketing I see it is with this, and this is again is the Challenger sale, and it depicts it quite nicely. So the power of insights with this gives me, I say it's a kind of an onion. I mean, it's a weird onion if you're looking at it, but it's an onion of sorts. And what I'm trying to say is, so at industry level, that's at global level, marketing needs to be in regular contact with customers, telling them what's happening on a global basis within their industry. So if you've got customers that are in automotive, you would tell them what's happening with automotive, similarly in oil and gas, or in shipping, or in construction, or whatever it is that they're in. Marketing needs to be keeping them in touch with what's going on. I ask that of the marketing department. And then the company part of it, That's what's happening at a regional level. Now that could be a country level, so the UK, or it could be a regional level such as Europe. So depending on that, what's happening with their businesses within that area. Again, that's about marketing, talking about here's what's happening in France, or here's what's happening in Italy, or here's what's happening in England compared to Scotland, or vice versa. That's where you start to get sales and marketing work together. And then the third layer in there is role, and that is sales. And that is about letting the customer know what is happening on a localized basis within his business or their business. So that's a localized role. And I put localized in brackets because localized could be the UK if you're in a region like Europe, or it could be a part of Scotland if you're making Scotland the region. So it depends. But it's what's going on around about your customer's business. And then the final bit is the individual bit, which is what we've talked about this morning, is understanding your customer's business. That's the most important part. Understand your customer's business. So when I work with companies, it's quite frightening when I ask the salespeople if they can name their top 10 customers. Most of them can't. Most of them can give you a 5. Top 5. Which they need to know their top 10 customers. Now, that top 10 is open to, what do I mean by top 10? Well, it could be a business, it could be a big customer of theirs that they need that keeps their factory turning over. They may not make a lot of margin from the customer, but they get quantity. And you could also have a top 10 customer who buys products from you, but you make good margins. So you're getting a good return on your investment. And it could be a mix of those. It doesn't necessarily mean that it has to be the top 10 biggest who buy or the top 10 on margin. It can be a mix. And that's what it's about. And if you know that, the reason that that's most important is that you can then ask your marketing department, here are the customers that buy from us. Therefore, can we have a targeted marketing program that targets customers that are like the ones we have, or organizations like the customers we have? And that's where marketing will love you, because it helps them with their research. So I always used to go and work with my marketing department and say, here's the customers we've got just now, here's who I'm looking at taking on, can we do something that would mix them together? And they always went, yeah, absolutely, we can do that. Because there's not much needs to be done in order for us to have a go at these customers we don't have, or these target customers we don't have. That's the power of insight. Has anybody what about our marketing people? Have they got any ideas on that? Do they agree, disagree? Anybody have something to say? So would you agree with that? Would anybody on the call agree that sales and marketing need to work together?
Oh, absolutely, they are. They should ideally be one unit. But then you learn this only when you've actually been out there and worked collaboratively across departments. Traditional view has salespeople, engineers, marketing people all played up against each other basically to outperform bureaucracy, red tape, and all of that. But when you've realistically worked in a firm where your point is, I don't care how this gets done, but I want this done, you learn that the cycle of where product, marketing, sales, after sales, feedback into all goes into one cycle. So everyone's got to really be working together, especially sales and marketing.
Yeah, totally agree with you. Completely agree with that. So sales has a role to play. That's a good thing to bring that in, and that's what Aberdeen does. Aberdeen University sees the value of having people like myself come in and talk about sales. It's a bit that's missed by a lot of businesses. They don't see the value in it. And that's because most people fall into sales. There is no real structure to a sales. If you ask any salesperson, they fell into it. It wasn't by design that they became a salesperson. And with that, they've not really been given the training for them to be effective. So they've had to learn it themselves. So it comes back to Ashay's point. Sales and marketing absolutely 100% need to work together. We need to have that relationship. We need to build it out. If sales and marketing can work together, they can be a very, very strong force and a strong revenue source for companies. So all I would say to anybody is when you go out, recognize who the salespeople are and see if you can work with them and help them to help you, to understand you. Because when you go into a new job, you need to recognize and understand the customers. Most of the time, the relationship is with the salespeople. So speaking with them to find out about customers is a great start. Does anybody else have anything else to add? No? Everybody's gone quiet. So what we're looking at is that we need salespeople to work with marketing, but marketing is important. So if I'm doing a marketing program, I don't know how to do a marketing program. So I need salespeople to help me with that. So particularly now with online, I know a bit about online, but not very much. So how do I target certain things? How do I do surveys with SurveyMonkey or whatever? How do I put a newsletter together? How do I do an email blast to customers or a targeted sector of customers? How do I build out my website to make it a bit more visible? All these kinds of things. I mean, there's a whole heap of different things within marketing. So they're becoming more and more important for sales to work together with marketing. And that's all I want to say on that. It's important. But the power of insights, if you take nothing away, remember that onion skin. So the onion skin, the two outer layers, globally and on a large regional scale, is marketing deals with customers. And then on a localized and an individual level, it's sales. And if they can do that with your top, 30 customers, then you will see sustained growth. Simple as that. So one thing I do talk about with companies is the bamboo principle. And I try to get them to think about building a foundation in their business before they look to grow too big. The biggest challenge we have in businesses just now is probably that most of them really didn't build a strong enough foundation for things like this to happen. So what I mean by the bamboo principle is, so bamboo, when it's planted in the ground, and some of you may know this, grows for about 3 to 4 years underground. And it builds a system called the rhizome system. And it only really grows maybe 1 or 2 or 3 inches above the ground in that 3 or 4 years. However, once that rhizome system has been built and is now, it has a decent structure and has been completed, then bamboo is one of the fastest growing plants we know of in the world. And it can grow in all environments. So depending on the environment it is, it can grow extremely fast, but it always grows. And what you can do is you can cut it down and it will grow again. Also, the other thing with bamboo is that it's extremely strong for the weight of it. So it's used in construction in certain countries. So think about that with your business, or think about that as how do you build the business out. Build out a strong foundation, and if you have a strong foundation built from the right areas, then allow yourself the time to do that, and then start to grow the company. Okay? Any questions from anybody? No? Everybody okay? Okay. So really, all I want to do now is quickly just summarize what we've talked about. So there's been a lot in there, and it's been it's been a challenge this morning, just with different things going on, lots of noises, some technical stuff. So if we are to take anything from this, and I hope you do, is the one thing I would hope you would take from this is when you are being sold to, experience to see whether the person selling to you is listening to you and is selling from your, or is listening from your perspective. If they're not, then the good chance is it's not going to be a good experience. Okay, and if you are on the other side as selling something as the salesperson, then recognize that in order for it to be effective and for it to be a good experience, then it's always best to think of it from the customer perspective. And then that leads into things like customer experience. So why do I like to be called by my first name? Why do you think Starbucks put the first name on people's cups? Because it brings that engagement. It's all about engaging. Why do you think the Starbucks equipment round the counter is at a certain height? Because you can still see the person making your coffee. It's all about understanding and seeing and making things. So Starbucks about 10 years ago decided to bring in a bigger barista machine, and they actually got rid of it about 4 months later because the barista machine went too high. So when people had paid for the coffee and they were walking down, they were less engaged because they couldn't see the people behind the counter, the baristas making the coffee. It's things like that. So there's lots of things to be done within customer experience and how you work that through. So just be aware that sales has a process, sales has a framework, and the biggest thing that you can do in sales is listen from the customer's perspective. And that's what I'm going to end with. Has anybody any questions, anything they'd like to ask before we go? No? Everybody's okay? Cool. Okay. Well, thank you very much, everybody, for coming on. I appreciate it. I'll pass the recording across to the university, and they can then send it out to you if you want it. The link to the YouTube video that didn't work is in your workbook. I will make sure that all the marketing students, I'll speak with your lecturer, and I'll make sure that they can then pass that out to you. And then hopefully from there you've got everything. Okay? But all I want to say to you is stay safe. We'll get through this. It's a difficult time. It's okay to feel not okay. That's part and parcel of this whole thing. And just make sure that you go out and get some fresh air. And as I say, take precautions, stay safe, and be kind to one another. Okay? So have a lovely rest of the week, and hopefully we will see you face to face at some point. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Cheers. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.